Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Christian Therapist Podcast. Lindsey here again with Aron. Hey, Aron.
What's up, Lindsey?
I know, I feel like we don't even need to do last names anymore.
I know. It's just Aaron and Lindsay. It'll be our new
Yeah,
moniker, right? Like
that's it.
Madonna or Cher. We're just
Right.
Aaron and Lindsay.
That's it. That's all. Yes. We're here. Here we are. We're back. And back with our series of what's happening with dot dot dot. And this time we decided to move into talking about the perpetual victim. Also, I just had a blank out there because when I said series, my phone thought I said Siri. So I was like, oh no, it's about to talk to me.
She's like, yes,
I
yes.
know,
Oh,
I
not to
know.
me. Oh, so sorry.
Right. I bet you Siri has talked to many a perpetual victim
No,
as
I'm sure.
you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
But anyways, so we have this series called What's Really Happening with dot dot dot. And today we are on part two of talking about the perpetual victim. Now, we have all, I believe, at some point have come across someone who has been stuck in this victim state. It's
Hmm.
this lens, it's just the way that they see the world. And man, oh man, it can be very, very hard to be in relationship with them. And part one, we really wanted to try to start to bring compassion to who they are because yes, it's hard to be in relationship with them. And we wanted for everybody to know what's happening within them that keeps them in this place.
Right,
Just usually when we know what's going on, it's so much more helpful to be like, oh, okay. Again, something's happening to you. You're not trying to do something to me.
right.
So it can help with that way of separating ourselves and not getting so triggered in those moments. But
Hmm.
then there is then the question for us as therapists, okay, now they're in our office. What do we do? How do we help them? And so that's the promise that we offered at the end of the last episode that we would get to today.
That's right.
Yes.
It's tricky because that sense of, the way that our own nervous systems work, when it feels like someone's always trying to take something from you, or they just so overly need you, there's not enough room for you to be present. It's hard to generate compassion, right? Because it feels like you're coming from a lack. And while we want to be noble to say that would never happen to a therapist, yeah. That still happens to therapists when they're
Sure.
like, good golly, what do I do here? How do
Oh,
I help this person get out of this
yeah.
mode? Because therapy is the place where you get to come and make it all about you and
Mhm.
and someone's going to attune and connect and all of these things. But sometimes when you don't know how to get it to be different, then it's just as quickly stuck for us too.
Right, right. And it can be really hard too, because I know that, in therapy, we want our clients to risk. Like we want for them to go out, we want for them to risk doing something new out in the world, out in relationships, because we can catch them,
Hmm.
when they come back, if it goes wrong, if it goes sideways. And so, from my perspective, at times where I have sent clients out, not, I mean, they wanted to go out to do these things new, but to engage with people in a new way. The amount that I have then had them come back to go, whoa, when I went to say, hey, this was difficult, that was difficult, to really show up, it always turned back to being about the person's hurt and not about the hurt that I'm sharing, which I think in my tenure of doing this, I have now learned I don't send them out unless I know more of how the person would respond, because then there's a different way that you would then send them out,
That's right.
right? Because not
Yeah.
everybody that we send them out to will respond the same. So we've got to really know what's happening in the other person before we send our clients out to do the new thing so we can help almost catch ahead of time how this is going to go down.
Yeah.
and or be able to start with a better way that the person can hear it,
Hmm.
right? If that's the goal. And so I know for me with perpetual victims, it's that we don't send them out, like we don't send our clients out starting to talk about their hurt. There's a place of where we almost have to go out and send them a little bit acknowledging how much the victim has been hurt first,
Hmm.
because otherwise there's just no space for that. But then we also take that back into the counseling room is there's a place of having to slow them down enough to start to pinpoint like where did this come from? Where are those places within this perpetual victim that nobody saw the totality of the hurt? Nobody held the totality of the hurt with them. And so that's really what it feels like they're looking for is like,
Yeah.
will somebody hold this with me?
Yeah. And it's difficult because it may look like there's a lot of content. And so you're like, which one am I supposed to be with them with? Because every time I sit with one, another one shows up. And that's why we talk a lot about attunement, the focus of the feeling, because it becomes less about the circumstance they're in
Mhm.
than the perpetualness of their experience of how that feeling shows up in every circumstance. And so as you attune to that feeling of injury, of like, I can't get what I need in one circumstance, you're trying to expand it beyond just this one moment to recognize its historical context of how often this feeling has been present. And even its origination. Where was your earliest memory of this feeling?
Right.
Where did this feeling originate and how is it carried through? Because we're caught in, like, the client's caught in a process of confirmation bias. Even when they're not being injured, their whole amygdala is pre-assessing things through a lens of being injured. So there's immediate assumption or even prediction and fulfillment, self-fulfillment of that prophecy of that circumstance because of the historical context. So as you attune to the feeling, and every feeling has a function,
Yes.
right? And we begin to understand what's that feeling really trying to describe? Where did it show up? What were its significant confirmations? Then we get something more solid that we can work on that's less the next place they felt injured.
Hmm. Yeah. And it feels to me sometimes the picture that I can get in my head or like the visual when I'm sitting with people is that I know in all of us is the image of God.
Mm.
Like it's who we are designed to be. He made us in his image. You know, man and woman created us in his image. And there's almost like when we're able to live out of that place, live out of that state, live out of a self, when we're able to live out of that place, man, there's more fullness, there's more vibrance. But then we learn over time almost that we can't live out of that place. It's too costly, it's too vulnerable. People don't like it who are around me. I lose relationship that way. We build, and I know, Aron, you do a training on this, the self states, but there's
Mhm.
there's a different self state in IFS. It's a part, and what we're talking about, there's this place that starts to almost like go out in front, to
Yep.
say, nope, this is the place we're living out of. And so a lot of times, even in assessment phase, it's listening, it's even wondering if you only have the individual, because you're not going to note that they live out of a victim, they're the perpetual victim. You're not going to know that because, like you said, Aron, this is a place where everybody comes and talks about their stuff.
Right.
And so it is all self-focused, but there is a place in assessment of even wondering what are they like in relationship with others? Like
Hmm.
how would other people describe them?
Yep.
Do they have a lot of people that are close? Do they have people that they've been able to keep in their life for a long amount of time? I mean, there's just different questions to start to wonder with them. and start to listen for what could be leading them. What state
Yeah.
could they be living out of that's not really, that doesn't actually really reflect the image of God? Like what could be holding them back from staying connected to that place?
hmm And that's why, I think it's so important when it comes to assessment with every client. It's what is their internal functioning like and what is their relational functioning like? Because they'll
Yes.
always affect one another. They're
Right.
always tied together. And you can get really good data from one if you're having struggling to get a conceptualization from just the other. And
Mhm.
so a victim may not talk about all the things that happen to them. We just attune to that, but we're missing how, why are all these people abandoning them? Or why do these people always opt out? How come they always end up alone? Like what's happening relationally that gives me an outside perspective from another person's perspective of the client that I have, not just mine, to figure out what's going on in this dynamic that ends up them again feeling abandoned, alone, not getting their needs met. And then as you begin to build that conceptualization, uh, then we're able to help the client attune. We're getting them to connect, to experience, to hold that feeling of injury.
Mhm.
But then the big question is, what will the client do with it?
Right.
And that, because when we talked about last time, is like that trauma of feeling is the collapse of the self.
Uh-huh.
There's an embodied memory of every time this feeling is present, I can't. And so I need is part of the dynamic of the function that's going on that keeps this person trapped. So how do we help increase agency? How do we increase self-leadership to
Mhm.
help the self, the client, turn towards that distress and then connect to it,
Mhm.
understand it, and then ask themselves, what will I do with this injury I carry? Because currently this feeling is dictating the course of my life, and its need is valid, but the way it seeks often drives what it needs further away from it. So
Right.
then what do we do? And I know that's part of the question of the podcast, but getting a client to the place where they can ask themselves, so what do I do about it, is
Mhm.
such a huge difference because that very question is
Right.
an act of agency, right?
Yes, it's awareness.
Yeah, it's not just a collapse. They're like, okay, so then what do I do about the
Mhm.
care injuries I carry, which is the opposite of what those injuries want. They want somebody else to.
Right. Right. And it's almost a two-parter in how we work with them, because what we have is one, in whatever modality we use, we start to go back to be with that injury in the way that it needed.
hmm
So I know for the different modalities that I use, there are different protocols to start to go back in there. I know though, even above that, like there is a place of just sitting with myself, with the Holy Spirit, sitting with the injury that shows up as it shows up in the present moment, and starting to allow the client to be curious with me. Like, what is this injury looking for? What's it seeking? What's it needing? How can we help it in this moment that it is alive in their body?
Right.
Because there's something huge about working with a feeling, working with a memory, working with pain when it's alive.
hmm
If it's not alive somatically in their body, we're more just almost like solving it or trying to figure it out in our
Well,
mind.
yeah, and you're creating answers that are not neurally connected to the source of distress. So
Right.
the brain
Right.
literally holds them in two different buckets because
Yes.
they're not tied together. If they're not firing together, they're not wiring together.
Correct.
So to do it cognitively means as soon as distress shows up, it loses access to all of that work and all of that memory.
Yes. Yes. Which is, even when we work with couples where it's like, man, once you get to that vulnerability, once you get to that place where they are connected, man, we have to slow it down. Like we have to work really slow with it. But it's hard work because that's, again, it's not something that we just typically do with each other.
hmm
We don't do that. We don't slow moments of hard down. moments of pain down. But that's what we have to start to do and start to help see, because as we stay with that feeling, it will start to show us the memory,
Hmm.
or the memory will show us the feeling one way or the other. Like it will
They're
show
tied
us,
together. Yeah.
right, what is needed. And to start to invite in, I know for me, I will wonder if the client wants to invite in God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, if any of the three of the Trinity feel safe for them,
Hmm.
to invite in. Sometimes they've invited me in. I mean, there's just different places of having these compassionate witnesses, the ones to be with people in memories where they felt all alone, because usually that's the bait, like, man, it's like, I don't know what you call it, that's the feeling that it usually always goes to,
Hmm.
is no matter what was painful, I was alone in that pain.
That's right.
And so inviting in any of us, but also keeping their agency.
Hmm.
You want for them to also be able to see their younger self compassionately, to be
Yep.
able to notice, to be able to weep, to be able to allow themselves to move in ways they didn't feel like they could move then,
Yep.
that they can do that today. So there's like the one part, which is we got to go back, but then the other part is we have to take ownership of how we show up today as an adult.
Yep.
And that's even, I've told somebody I love very dearly, I was like, I am so, so sorry that these things did happen to you in the past. They should not have. You should not have had to endure that as a child. And today, you get to choose
Hmm.
how you show up. Today,
Yep.
you get to choose the types of relationships you have. Today, you get to choose to be different for other people than how those people were for you.
Yeah. And that transition point is so difficult
Mhm.
because the memory exists, especially when it's developmental, when it's in childhood. The memory is the self couldn't choose. So when the
Right.
feeling shows up, the self state shows up that couldn't choose, it feels helpless, right? And that experience floods or overtakes. So they're back in that posture. So
Yes.
when we're working with a client in a session, connecting them to those experiences where care was lacking. It's reparative that we are providing care where care didn't exist. And then it's important to invite the self of today to hold and attend to the injury of yesterday,
Hmm.
right? That engagement, the
Yeah.
internal engagement of the active self. And you can do that through a part. You can do that through envisioning the inner child. You can do
Hmm.
it through holding the feeling of distress that no one was there to hold, not even the self,
Right.
right? So you're directing the self to begin to from a place of agency, engage that feeling. And you can do that in the memory as a sense of increasing aging, because everything happens in the present, even when we engage memory. But experientially we go to the past, we take this self to the past, but the more they're able to hold that sense of hold the feeling, that's a secondary reparative experience, because now we're having experiences not only of what didn't receive care to receive care, now we have an experience of the self holding distress without collapse. And that's so critical because we need to leverage that in everything that's going to happen today and tomorrow.
Yes.
So that engagement then of, so now what do we do with it when this feeling's in play, differentiating the self from the feeling or the self from the part that kind of floods and overcomes the self state, then we can begin to move into new types of engagements, right? Which a big part of that is understanding how their injury causes injury.
Yes. And usually it causes the very same injury that that they received when they were little or
Correct.
whenever it happened. Because that can be the very thing with the perpetual victim, is that no one was there to see their pain. And
Right.
so then as an adult, as a perpetual victim, when they have hurt somebody and that somebody comes to them and says, "You have hurt me," they don't enter into the pain of the other, they stay with their own pain, right? So
Hmm.
then they've caused that very same feeling
Yep.
in the other. It continues on, you know.
Yep.
It's a bad cycle.
And that's why I believe, at least in the therapy I created in attuned systemic repair, the technique we call constructing empathy, because I think a
Mhm.
lot of modalities wait for empathy to happen, or we present the conditions and empathy is supposed to occur. But
Right.
I think constructing empathy is often very helpful. And for a client in this position, constructing empathy can kind of show up in two ways. One, it's building a really accurate model of the one who injured them and why they couldn't or why they didn't. What happened in that person that they didn't show up? And usually that's because of something they lacked,
Sure.
right? They lacked their own sense of care, they lacked their own sense of agency, they had their own sense of failed solutions. And when you begin to understand the why people respond that way, there's room for compassion for why, but accountability for what, because what
Mhm.
injured them.
Yeah.
But then there's an understanding of they were desperate or hurting or broken or whatever, but their behaviors injured you. Then that's translatable. Well, how does your injury do that to others?
Uh-huh.
Does your injury cause injury
Right.
to others? And there's a sense of curiosity because if that can happen to you, maybe they weren't trying to do it to you, but it happened. Maybe we could do that. Is that possible? Or you could immediately go to if it has a more immediate relational context with a spouse, a child, a friend or something where there's an immediate context, then you can you can construct the empathy of the one that they constantly need and what happens to them and construct empathy on the other side to say, is it possible our injuries causing injury? And
Hmm.
then what do we do? Now you have to be careful because that can cause a new collapse. See, I am terrible. I am worthless. See, I can't. You have to be careful there. And
Uh-huh.
that's not it. The answer is because we lose our agency and leadership, that's when we cause the injury,
Hmm.
right? It's not because you're a bad person. It's because we're
Right.
not leading our
Right.
injury.
Right.
And so that's what we're trying to build is that sense of self within the injury to ensure that we are safe and protected and we are caring to others and how to negotiate and navigate the risk of relationship and how do I extend care and receive care.
Yes. It's making me think, Aaron, and I'm going to try to tell the story in a way that I'm not giving anything away. But just in speaking to therapists, right? Because well, let me just say, there's a couple that maybe or maybe not I have worked with at some point, and it's the same thing of younger injuries in one spouse is now showing up in the marriage today and wanting to do everything they can not to ever feel that pain again.
Yes. Hmm.
So trying to make everyone outside of them in the family show up in a way that they don't feel pain.
Hmm.
And that's very, very difficult. And this is where I continually try and have tried to bring them is to that place of seeing the ownership of today. Today, you are in a family. Today, you are a spouse. Today, you are a parent. Today, we've signed up for all of these roles in which we have the privilege of being able to show up to give these people we're in a relationship with better, greater stories than what you got.
Hmm.
And if we continue on this path, we are going to give them the same story. Because if the only needs that matter are your own,
Hmm.
then that's going to give them the same wound that you got when
Right.
you were younger.
Yep.
And the thing that is harder, and this is just, I'm going to complain a little bit, but that the individual therapist that they see is only working on, well, let's put words to your needs today and let's have you share all your needs today so that people can hear them and organize themselves around them. And I'm
Right.
like, this is hard because then this person will start to get upset if everybody's not hearing their needs.
Right. Or
And
present
I'm
their
like,
own needs.
right.
Yeah.
And it's a difficulty because we're going, no, hey, as we help people in relationship, if that's what their goal is that they want to be able to show up better in relationship, they want to be able to love better, is to be able to say, ooh, my needs when I was younger did not get met. And today, it's not everybody's job to get those needs met for me. Like,
Right.
that's not everybody's job today. And if I say I have a need and it clashes with someone else's need, I now need to learn how to go and hear their need and be able to like care about these things versus just saying it's my need or the highway.
Right. That's the hardest thing about love. That's the hardest thing about relationship is that it's an inherent risk, right? I'm presenting myself in a way that invites responsiveness, not guarantees it.
Correct.
And
Correct.
when my injuries demand responsiveness,
Yes.
then no one gets a choice,
Right.
right? Because they must. And I've prioritized myself over them, which kind of negates the whole part of the gospel that we're supposed to love others as much as we love ourselves. And if we're
Right.
supposed to love ourselves and get our injuries met, right? We can't only prioritize that, and so that negotiation, that coordination with another is inherently risky. And when our nervous system can't tolerate any disappointment or miss or injury, then we don't have the ability or the self to bear an injury for somebody else, then the whole thing collapses. That's kind of that sense where we're trying to help them grow into a maturity, grow into an awareness that says your injuries matter and so do theirs, right?
Right.
Your needs matter and so do theirs.
Yes.
No one should be completely collapsed or completely prioritized. We are working together, and there's a spectrum of ability that everyone carries, and how well we do that. And that's our job as therapists to help people grow in that process.
Right.
But being able to hold an injury within myself for me to recognize I have an area of sensitivity that
Mhm.
I have to guard against to make sure it doesn't injure others. But I also need to prioritize and vulnerably disclose to those, to trusted others, that I have injuries and my need of these reparative experiences from them.
Mhm.
Then we're trying to work that out one another. That begins to shift that internal perspective from
Mhm.
being a perpetual victim to I was a victim,
Correct.
right? And I
Correct.
carry injuries, but everybody carries their own levels of injuries, and I am one of many, and I'm worthy of care, and so are you.
Mhm.
And so, how do we do this together? That's
Yeah.
such a huge mental shift, and it's such a huge self-state fix,
Right.
repair where those traumatic injuries lie, to be able to hold oneself and view self and others differently.
Yes. Well, and even the visual I have is it is now like who I am in Christ is driving the bus, not the victim is driving the bus and I'm taking a back seat.
Right.
Right?
That's
It's
right.
like who I am in Christ is driving the bus, and the victim might come up and say, "Be careful, speed bump ahead." And then you look and
Yep.
you go, "It's actually not a speed bump. We're okay."
Right, right,
Or you're like, "That is a speed bump. Thank you for telling me."
right.
Um,
It
that
did
there,
hurt. We do need to talk about it, but we also need to ask them about their experience too.
right, right. But there's even a coordination within ourself
Yes.
to make sure that we're leading, and then a coordination with others to make sure that both matter,
Yep.
right? And as you're talking about that, Aron, that's what we're helping create within our clients are new narratives, right? They're
Hmm.
new ways of seeing what's happened to them, what is happening to them, and what is within theirs. to own and to do,
Hmm.
because once they start to get to this place where there is more of a self that can hold pain, that can not only hold their pain, but someone else's pain, now we send them out not to tell other people how they pained us, but we send them out to ask others, how did I pain you?
Hmm.
Because I know I couldn't hold it back then, but I think
Right.
I can hold it now.
Yeah, and not collapsing in shame. A lot of those narratives are adjusting it. Everything's my fault. I'm the reason everyone leaves. I'll never get it right. I
Right,
can't manage myself, right? Everyone, nobody cares. All of the stories that we carry kind of predict our behavior. And
right.
so the feelings are valid, but the stories are broken. And we have to reorient these stories to something that's more true, more holistic
Hmm.
to say I was uncared for by people who didn't know how to care for me.
Right.
I was raised by teenagers, or I was raised by people who were also abused. And, I had parents who just didn't know how to do it. And so I got these injuries, and that's part of my history,
Uh-huh.
which is why it's important for me to live these ways, right?
Right.
It's why it's important for me to recognize I still have sensitivities within me that don't just disappear, but I don't have to live in the past anymore.
Yes.
There's a new way of living. I'm worthy of care. I was worthy of care, and so are others worthy of my care, and not
Hmm.
just for me to be cared for. And so shifting those stories within the context of the feeling, taking that ability of who I was then, updating these new narratives with kind of who I am today, same feeling, different stories, allows room for new behaviors to emerge. And
Yeah.
that's not a switch, right? It's a growth, it's a maturing, and we walk clients like through these phases, these iterations, working at the edge of tolerance, kind
Hmm.
of growing them into this new place. And I always like to use the song Amazing Grace, right? Because we want to get to a place where it says, I once was lost, but now I'm found. Like I'm not
Yeah.
still lost. I once was blind, still blind. No, I once was blind, but now I can kind of see. I can see what happened and why they did that to me. I see what that did to me. I saw how it affected myself and my relationships, and I can see how I need to move forward. Like there's a sense of progression, of shifting. So I still remember what it was like to be lost and blind, but I don't
Yeah.
have to live that way anymore. Is kind of we're
Right.
trying to make that shift.
Right. And it really, to me, as you're talking, I'm like, man, the verse that keeps coming up is this place of, just saying, like, behold, I make all things new.
Yes.
And it's not a new that goes, now we forget the past or we forget, but it's going the way that I am able to show up, the way that I'm able to engage with others, it can become new, it can become different, it can become more and more like him, which is our
Mhm.
ultimate goal anyways, which is the
Mhm.
race we're running, is we want to continually be transformed more and more into his likeness.
Yep.
And good Lord, he is the good Lord, but the one who probably has the most need to show up as the perpetual victim because he was the victim
Right.
doesn't. He still shows up for us.
Yep. And we don't think of it like that, that we injure God, how often
Right.
we injure him. And
Right.
in his injury, he leads, right? He comes for
Yes.
us. But
Yes.
he also declares his injuries and where it hurts him and how it
Yes.
affects him. And that sense of being able to do both, he is the model of
Right.
recognizing his own sense of felt experience
Hmm.
of betrayal or abandonment or not being trusted, and also
Right.
his proclamation of his needs, along with his ability to hold himself aside and humble himself and come alongside us
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
suffer for us despite how we've injured him. So that spectrum of agency, he is such a
Mhm.
good model. And those are the things that we're trying to do with clients in a
Right.
process of transformation.
Hmm.
There's healing and then there's transformation, and we're trying to go beyond of a neutral state, right? We're trying to grow into this more adaptive, whole,
Hmm.
healthy place where we can be a model, not just uh, the same as everybody, right? We're supposed
Yeah.
to grow into something new, right?
Yes.
Something. uh,
For
people
sure.
needing me.
Well, and even Aaron, you wrapped it up beautifully then, which means I probably should end it. But you did, like, it did jog something in me when you said he even declares his injury. Because even this morning I was reading, like, Genesis 1, where he's like, oh my gosh, like, let us create man in our image, man and woman in our image. And he created them. And he's like, God, this is awesome. And you guys rule over, you know, the animals and the plants. And like, I'm giving you so much here. And then he was like, it is good. And then rested.
Yep.
And then you just go like 6 chapters over. And it's like, because I like it when in chapter 1 he's like, let us make, like he's like sitting here talking to the Trinity. In like chapter 6 of Genesis, he's like I just imagine him like God, Jesus, and Holy Spirit together and like, what did I do? Why did I? This is horrible. Like
This is
everybody
terrible.
doesn't even have a good thought in their head. Like it's just
Right?
continual evil thoughts. Like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
what in the world? But there was just, I don't know, in reading it this morning, I'm like, there is just such a declaring of like, what I do. No,
I don't
nobody
know.
cares. No, everybody's living for themselves. Their thoughts are only evil. Like,
Yep.
what in the world? And I just think
Yep.
there's such a beauty to sitting and going, yep, even the Lord, he declares his injuries.
It's funny because I was reading in Ezekiel today, and in my readings, at one point, God says, I take no pleasure when the wicked perish. He says,
Right.
I don't like it. It's not what I
No,
want. Right. So that
no.
longing for a relationship is like, he's
Yes.
like, I take no pleasure in that. That's not what I want. It's not
Right.
good. Right.
Right.
And then like the next chapter, he's like, you say that my ways aren't fair. Your ways aren't fair.
Sure.
You know what
Sure.
I mean? I'm trying to do things like fair. If people repent, I'll forgive them. You just throw everybody under a bus, right? It's just
Right.
like you can just treat everybody terrible. Like that's not what
Right.
I'm doing. You know what I mean? So that sense
No.
of longing of like I hate it when the wicked perish. It's not what I want, but also, you're accusing me like I'm doing all the bad things. You're doing all the bad, that protest is, is it's not that God is so much like us, because we're made in his image. We're a
Right.
lot
We're
like
like
him,
him.
right?
Yes. Yes.
And all of those things.
Yes.
But he's definitely like he knows how to do it together, and we're just trying to work it out,
Hmm.
you know.
For sure. For sure. And there's still a refreshing place where, as you read in the Bible and you go, okay, you know, that feels, I'm like, Lord, that feels so familiar,
Yep.
of just like, what I do, what is happening, what's going on here?
And how many therapists
Um,
haven't had that thought? You're like, am I even doing anything? Is this any
right.
good at
Why am
all?
I doing this job? But then you start to get, where you go, okay,
That's
okay.
right.
There is the long suffering part of it.
Hmm.
Um, but anyways,
But
okay.
miracles
I
and
knew I would
transformations
take
though.
us off the rails, but I was just like, man, even this morning, I just loved how he was like, what in the world? I don't know. I
What
could
in
just relate to that so much.
so much.
Um, well, Aaron, you wrapped it up beautifully earlier. And, hopefully today was just a help in being able to go, man, okay, we've got to be able to help bring ownership,
Yeah.
to those who do show up as perpetual victims, but also know there's places of care in the past that we've got to go to. We've got to help those places. We've got to name those places. And especially, we got to get them alive in the room
Hmm.
so that we can give them a different experience, a different wiring, and then still deal with the way we show up today because we want to try to help them know they don't have to collapse today.
Right.
They, with us, with God, with Jesus, with the Holy Spirit, can sit in pain, right? Can be able to hold pain and know they'll be okay. There's actually a beauty that can start to come when we sit in pain with each other together.
Yep.
It can start to bring relief.
Yeah.
and then start to create these new narratives, like what you were saying, that place of, no, I was a victim.
Hmm.
Today I'm wanting to show up more in the image of God. I'm wanting more me and God to be driving the bus. And I want to start to go to be able to say, how have I injured? Because
Hmm.
I want to rewrite that story too for
Yep.
other people as well. I don't want to continue on with others that I love, doing what was done to me.
Yep. Everyone is worthy of care, right?
Everyone,
Me and
everyone.
yeah.
Yes, yes, that we both can matter. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, Aaron, good talking with you. And we will come up with another what's really happening with dot dot dot. So get excited.
Stay tuned.
Yes. See you later.